Today.
Rock and roll.
All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to TLD Chat or TLD Cast. For those of you that got the email today, we're changing things up around here at TLDC and some naming conventions a little bit. Let us know. I hope everybody in the chat has had a great weekend and able to hang out with us this morning. Wow, what a great crew hanging out. Good to see everybody. We have a fantastic guest waiting for us in the wings while I go through a couple announcements this morning like I normally do. You'll notice that I have a bit of a new studio setup, so worked on it a little bit this weekend. I'm hoping everybody can hear me, first of all. Wow, maybe I should even start there. Are you guys... We can now. Great. Okay. You couldn't before? All right, Luis. Thanks, man. I'm going to crank up the gain on this just a little bit and just see. Let me know if you guys, well, you shouldn't be getting any feedback because I'm listening through the headset. So we should be all good. We can hear you. We could before. You're good. All right. Awesome. Anyways, so welcome, everybody. We have new digs for me today, and we're basically going to be making just a few little changes here at TLDC. But we have Richard Boyd as our guest today. I'm going to get with him in just a minute, but as always, can't hear me, Candace. Rats. All right, well, as long as maybe it might be something on your end. Check your volume, all that kind of good stuff. But anyways, quickly, I know I had to start late, and I don't want to lose too much time with Richard today, so I'm just going to give a quick shout out to everybody who helps us out on TLD Chat. Thank you all so much for being a part of what we do here. Please check out the website, tldc.us. Please tell all your friends about it, and consider becoming a member if you haven't already. Every day we go live, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 value and content being generated. The conversations are fantastic. And of course, as you all know, the community itself is filled with fantastic, experienced people. So lots and lots of value to be had. We're also having our event coming up in January in Phoenix, Arizona. It is going to be fantastic as well. You can hit up the website at tldc18.com and get registered there. And just so you know, if you become a member of TLDC, the TLDC community, you get a discount as well. So check out all that fantastic stuff. Also sign up so that for the newsletter so that you know what's going on. And when Luis sends out all the fantastic emails about all the great updates and things that are going on here behind the scenes, you can be the first to know and know what's going on. So one top and a great conversation with the TLDC community, and there is a fantastic guest that I would love to introduce to you now. His name is Richard Boyd.
Hey,
Richard,
good morning, everybody.
You? It's great to see you and to reconnect. You and I met a long time ago, if I remember
the early days of the interwebs when it was still in
Yeah, I think we were talking virtual reality back then.
Virtual reality, right? Multimedia, back when that was the vogue. Back in the early to mid 90s, I believe.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, the good old days. They make fun of me in the chat because I tend to reminisce quite a bit, and I call it the good old days probably too often. So I'll try not to sound like such an old fart, but you've got a new product that you've cranked up and that you've had running for a little while, and we're definitely going to talk about that. But why don't you just help everybody out in the community and give us a little bit of a rundown on who you are and kind of how you got to where we're at today.
Sure. So my background is really in computer gaming. About something like, sorry, I'm jumping around a lot here. 27 years working in computer gaming, as Brent said, going all the way back to the early 90s. my colleague David Smith and I have formed a number of game companies you may have heard of. The most well-known is Red Storm Entertainment with author Tom Clancy. We also made a game company with Michael Crichton, with Ozzy Osbourne, and science fiction writer Douglas Adams. And my question always for people is, of those four, who's still alive? That's right, only Ozzy. So draw your own conclusions there. But after the turn of the century, we started taking this really powerful gaming medium and applying it to shortening the path to mastery for all sorts of applications, primarily in simulation for the military and others, but increasingly areas of human endeavor like, learning algebra or history or physics or chemistry or, how to run a water treatment plant, all sorts of things. So, this medium of computer gaming has always fascinated me. Mostly because, and I know a lot of you in this industry are working with it under the guise of serious games today, but mostly because it contains every medium ever used before in human history. So if you want to try to embed information in human beings using a simulated environment for safe practice with all those media types at your design under your design control, definitely yields a shorter path to mastery. So I've had a lot of great fun with that. Lockheed Martin, the big aerospace company, bought my last company, and I spent 6 years there playing with all kinds of toys. And again, focusing into healthcare simulation and even dragging that group into education. And now but as you pointed out, I found a really amazing new set of technologies called machine learning. And David and I created a company about 4 years ago around that. And I want to share some of that stuff with you. And I see some of I see Josh Cavalier is saying that he remembers Red Storm and even Virtus, the 3D engine that we built back then. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the Macromedia director. Wow. There's a blast from the past. Thanks for making us feel really old, Josh. Appreciate that.
I was just talking to Mark Cantor recently. Mark, of course, was the guy who founded Macromedia years ago.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That was wow. Back in the day, I can remember you've done some DoD stuff, right? I mean, like sub simulations and those types of things.
Yeah.
Too,
like
right?
I said, after September 11th, we had sold Red Storm to Ubisoft, and September 11th had happened, and we went down and kind of upset, like everybody was at the time, went down and knocked on the door at Fort Bragg and said, what can we do to help? And of course, found out they were playing Rainbow Six there and trying to use it for training. We said, oh no, you need it a lot more purpose-built than just taking an off-the-shelf game. So we started building specific simulations for how to, use communications gear and even small unit tactics. And like you said, complete models of, like, we crawled around. I took all my 3D gaming artists with their piercings and their tattoos and crawled all around a 688 attack sub and modeled it in 3D so that we can build these, what they call now, total ship simulators. Instead of setting aside a submarine or a ship for training, we can basically build a multiplayer game that you can go in and practice all you want. So we definitely had a great deal of fun sort of creating standards around that that the military, the DoD, didn't have at the time. They called it Level 4 Interactive Multimedia Instruction because they always like to neuter anything that sounds sexy, like let's call it Level 4 Interactive Multimedia Instruction. So we actually set the standard for that and created the first training, hundreds of hours of IMI training that was validated by U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command, or TRADOC. So we set a lot of those early standards back in the early 2000s, the early aughts.
Yeah, how do we say that? I don't want to take us down a side road, but yeah, the 2000s, the aughts, the zeros, yeah.
Yeah. So, I've just come from, I hope some of you were there, but I've just come from a week at ITSEC in Orlando, the International Inter-Service Training, Simulation, and Education Conference, where those technologies are continuing to advance We had this thing there called the Serious Games Showcase and Challenge, where I saw a lot of the
Yep.
really amazing new technologies coming out, and how to connect that to the XAPI and learning management systems and all of that. So I really, it's really good to see that field continues to make progress with people like those on this call today.
Yeah, not many people from this group, I think, have been to ITSEC. And because I've mentioned it before in our chats, and I've always absolutely loved that event, and I use it really as as sort of a future telling events, if you will, right? I mean, because I can remember back in the early days of that Serious Games Challenge, back when everything all of a sudden became Flash, and then the industry became Flash. And so last year when I was at ITSEC, I didn't make it this year, but I noticed that, and I know you were there last year, but like 90% of the games were built with 3D engines of some sort, and most of them probably with Unity. So it's to me, it kind of starts to feel like a real bellwether for where the industry's headed as far as what tech's going to be utilized for training.
Yeah, and I'll just give you some heads up on the high points for those of you who weren't there, but the trend now is going straight to web-based games, whether you use Unity or any other tools to get there, but having something in the end that's HTML5 or WebGL. This sort of getting rid of the need to install plugins anymore that we've talked about for quite some time, but that's really becoming vogue within government today.
Oh, wow.
Where they don't want to install anything. So look at WebGL, look at HTML5, and sort of hone your skills there if you want to, especially if you want to do government stuff. But to me, it always has made a lot of sense, even within the gaming simulation industry. In fact, while I was at Lockheed, David and I got a contract with the DoD to create an open source web-based 3D simulation environment. It's called the Virtual World Framework. Again, bad name by the government, but if you go to, I think on Wikipedia, if you go to look up Virtual World Framework, all one word,
check it out.
You can see where all the GitHub resources are and that sort of thing. That you can use. And again, the idea is to really democratize the ability for people to create and maintain games so that, you don't have to have this arcane priesthood of people in the, who know Unreal or know the Crytek engine or even Unity, even though Unity is a lot more democratic in its approach. But really get it down to where, hey, if you know JavaScript, then you can build and maintain, cutting edge AAA title sorts of game-based simulations. And the idea is to get more of this into the instructional designer's hands and more into the teacher's hands and not rely so heavily on, like I call it, the arcane priesthood of game developers.
Yeah, right. It's interesting, and I definitely want to get to your machine learning and more about that new tool. But just real quick, just for a couple minutes, let's talk about this real quick. This virtual world framework. Is this something that, because I know XAPI just went through a really big, the really big deal of having the government sort of, bless XAPI as a standard or as a framework. Has this virtual world framework gone through that same process, and is it
Yes,
official?
It's definitely official. It was initially funded by the government. Where it's running into issues, of course, is, and we're still struggling with that within government, is how do you adopt open source and what are the business models around it? And of course, there are a lot of like Machiavelli says, anytime you try to create a new system, you're going to have stalwart opponents and anybody who's invested in the old one. We've tried to advocate for it and say, look, the reason you want this open source is because it really does democratize and lower the cost to field and maintain these simulations. And the business models are, there's lots of them. I mean, lots of proven models. Somebody needs to be the eBay of it, or the sort of clearinghouse for content. there's training around these tools. There's all sorts of business applications, but we just have to be a little more creative. So it has been adopted. It's just not really caught fire yet because there's a lot of resistance.
Gotcha. And are there tools currently that you use to create the content for this type of framework? I suppose, I mean, obviously I can go in and but do you, and then Unity can like export into this format, into this framework, or is it totally HTML open source stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you can use Unity to export out to it. That's what a lot of people end up doing. And there's a question on there about, is ADL supporting it? Yeah, we work closely with the ADL Collab. Christy Murray, back when she ran it, and today it's Say Shots, who's a friend of mine. I've been involved with them for years, going way back to when I was on the advisory board of the early SCORM efforts with Phil Johns. If you guys remember him, Phil's the guy who played the organ in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That he and I were sort of whiteboarding early SCORM way back in the day. So today XAPI, I think, is really just an extension of that. It's another way of sort of tagging content to get learners on their journeys, right?
Yep. Cool. All right. Cool. Yeah. Well, we can go back to this if we have a little bit of time, but I want to let you keep going on the machine learning side of things.
Yeah, you bet. So I definitely, as you can tell, we've got some deep roots in simulation. We continue to build sims and that sort of thing. Now we're interested in using machine learning to drive simulations. So to make them more accurate, more validated, and to put people into simulations that, or design simulations for people that are more finely tuned to them. So that's what I want to talk to you about real quickly, because it's probably something new for you. So this is kind of what you're seeing on screen there is me with the inventor of the Microsoft Kinect, Alex Kipman, on my right shoulder, and on my left is, of course, Jaron Lanier, the guy who came up with the term virtual reality, right?
Yep.
But just in 2009, they were working on the Kinect, and we came out there to talk to them. I was at Lockheed at the time. It's like, hey, let's go help them with the sensors. But right away, I became a lot more enamored of what they were doing with machine learning. They were trying to teach the system what a living room was, right? And that's very simple to us, but computationally, still at that time, it was almost like the early days of autonomous vehicles, where we were trying to teach a system how to drive a car. We were doing it the way we thought a human being would do it, and that turns out to be the wrong way. Because machines don't drive the way humans do. They don't have 2 eyes, 2 feet, 2 hands. And again, they have a lot more sensor devices at their disposal. And when a machine is trying to understand a living room and everything it might encounter in there, in a home, in different lighting conditions, different times of day, all sorts of things, you can't just like give it rules. The new way of doing it, instead of programming in the AI logic, you just give it every possible example you can find of, what do Asian living rooms look like, or, European or rural versus urban. What's the difference between a table and a chair and whatever. And by giving it a massive number of examples, it just continuously updates and refines its own database and understanding. Then the other problem they had is they'd already shipped Xboxes all over the world that had only about 100 megabytes, not gigabytes, but megabytes of space available on them. And the machine was able, with a supercomputer, was able to actually get down to a rule set small enough to fit in that, and that's what made the Kinect launch possible. Of course, I've seen they've recently discontinued it for whatever reason, but this is kind of where we got our religion. And again, if you're looking at information out there and how to apply it for learning, I still believe, as I've written a couple of articles that you see here on superhuman education and my TechCrunch article there about the balance between humans and machines to optimize outcomes. That's kind of our big thesis statement. And again, I think even in the training environment, we have to figure out how to create that fluency, right? Yeah. With what parts of the tasks in any organization belong to human effort and attention, and what should we be outsourcing to machine effort and attention. And anybody who gets that right is going to succeed. Anyone who doesn't is not going to be competitive very quickly. So getting that balance right is critical, and that's why we have the company we do now. You may have seen some of these other examples of machine learning being applied. Again, this is DeepMind learning Atari, and that's me with Nolan Bushnell in the lower right-hand corner. The guy who founded Atari, and of course founded Chuck E. Cheese too, because they needed a place to put his Pac-Man games and everything. But the way they taught it to play is not by, which would have been pretty simple just to put the logic in there for how to play Atari games, but instead let it watch humans play, derive its own rules, and very quickly could come up with strategies that can beat humans and, of course, defeat the machines themselves. And that's just really fascinating stuff. This is the big news, of course, amazing. From about a year and a half ago. It's one thing to have a machine win at chess, even though chess is a complex game with as many positions as there are stars in our galaxy. We predicted for a while that the game of Go was way too nuanced and complex for machines to really just master with simple algorithms. But machine learning, like I'm trying to impress upon you here, is a completely different animal. And not only was the Go system able to actually beat AlphaGo, able to beat the #1 Go player in the world, but now there's a new version of DeepMind that has learned to beat its predecessor. And that is even more compelling and interesting because we're heading towards what we call AI plus. And AI plus, where systems improve upon themselves at these rapid rates, are concerning and compelling. So, and then this is the last thing. For a while now, I've been talking about machine learning and saying, you know, when are we going to get to a point where machines can deceive us? And there are still games that people talk about, like the game of StarCraft or even Texas Hold'em poker. And when will machines get to the point where they can defeat humans at these deceptive games? And if you're paying attention, this happened at Carnegie Mellon back at the beginning of this year. So almost a year now, where using a straight up set of machine learning libraries, Carnegie Mellon set up this deep learning system that defeated the top Texas Hold'em players in the world, and handily, by the way.
Oh my God.
So I'm trying to get you to just understand we need to pay attention to what's going on here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's just some of the kinds of problems you can apply it to, because it's really cool tech, but how do you apply it?
Yeah.
This is one example that I use. This is what I call the Hangar 51 problem. This last scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they have this incredibly potent artifact. And a clerk has put a tag on it that says Ark thingy, and it's putting it away in this massive warehouse. And it's undiscoverable now. And that's one of the issues we have today is there's lots and lots of great content, but where can you, especially if you're trying to do training and learn and design learning systems and learning paths, how do you find this stuff and make it available to humans so that they can learn, or machines? Yeah. And that's actually one of the early things we worked on at Lockheed. Was Arnie Duncan, Secretary of Education at the time, came to us and described this kind of problem and said, take the Smithsonian, for example. There's lots and lots of information there, undiscoverable by human beings. And we're trying to digitize it and tag it, but there's just way too much.
Uh-oh, I just lost you. Are you still there? Oops. That's okay, people. This happens. Technical difficulties, please stand by. I need a technical difficulties screen to pop up when this happens. So while he's getting himself reconnected and back on here, I'm so glad I've was able to get Richard's time. He's super, super busy. And this is all of this stuff that he's talking about is exactly why I wanted to bring him on, so that everybody could start, hearing about the realities of 3D and AI and machine learning. He really, really is at the cutting edge of this stuff. And he is connected to some fantastically smart people. And he's one of us. He comes from our world of training and learning and development. So a fantastic guest to have for sure. Are you back in here? Oh, yep, it's accepting and coming back on. So he should be back on in the video in just a second. Yeah. I should check outside and make sure there's no black van out front or something. Richard, if you're in and you can hear me, I'm going to go ahead and re-invite you to the video and see if that clears things up a little bit. Oh, you can hear me. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm gonna click the remove, but then I'm just gonna re-invite you. So just give me 1 second. I have to scroll down, see if I can find you. So many great people here today. I hope you all are reaching out to each other in the chat and getting to know one another as well. Some looks like some great new faces and names that I haven't seen in a while. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Okay, Richard, you should have that invite coming at you. And if left, and when Richard jumps back on here, he's going to be telling you a little bit about the software that he's created, the platform called, now I'm not sure if I'm even going to say it right, so I'll wait till Richard gets back on, but TANJO.AI, I think it is. This is the website. I even have it pulled up here. I should just share it. Yeah, TANJO.AI. If you guys want to go there and check it out and log in real quick. This is what Richard's going to be talking about in a second once I get him back on here. Oh, don't see the invitation. Ah, yikes. All right, let me try that one more time. Reprompt. Yes. No, good. I think the dialog box that normally Louise will click the invite to video, and it says, "Are you sure you want to invite them?" I think that dialog box didn't pop up, but I think. Do you see it now, Richard? Oh, okay. I'll do another reprompt. Oh, there you go. It says accepting and connecting. So I think you got it. Awesome. There you are. I see that you're on, but I still don't see your video, but that's okay.
All right.
I can hear you. Yep. So yeah, get that, do the screen share again. Boom. There we go.
See, the government can't keep us down. All right. What were we talking about before the black helicopters flew over?
Yeah, right. You were talking about that particular challenge.
And I'll just run through a couple of examples of this. So one of the things we did early on with our machine learning brain is, we tried to teach it all human knowledge, and initially we built a news reader for millennials called NomiBot. And the way we taught it is we looked up the old Dewey Decimal System and mapped the brain that way, and then let it loose on the internet to learn, and how it would, it categorized all of its own information. And that's an easy way to think of, a good way to think of machine learning is as a self-improving database, right? Categorizes its examples, and anytime it finds a better one, it can replace it. And then with a little bit of human prompting, which is, kind of like supervised learning, where you can refine it, it gets smarter faster. But you can apply it to all kinds of problems. One of the things it's really good at is reading text, any amount of text. So one thing we did with it here is had it read every single legal opinion in United States history across all 417 federal jurisdictions. That's a kind of fun thing you can do. And then have it actually categorize and show all the correlations and cross citations and everything. And that took about a week for it to go through everything. This is like impossible for a human to do, but a machine can do it in very short amount of time. And it wasn't even with the supercomputer. It was with just some really nice NVIDIA GPU arrays, right? So that's just one example.
Okay.
Again, you can apply, the other thing, I'll just give you one other quick example. There's some new rules coming out in accounting around revenue recognition that just went into effect last week, Friday, by the way. And accountants were running around trying to learn, like, how do we adjust our profession to make sure we can serve our clients around these new rules. And what we did is we basically took those rules, fed them into the machine learning brain, and then fed it millions of contracts out there. And it could read all those contracts, apply the rules, and again, help the human by saying, look, here's a bunch that are completely normal, and here's how the rules apply to them. Here's some that are vague or might have an issue and need some human attention for you to pay attention to. And that we call contract bot. But again, if you can train a system from whatever perspective you want to train it, and then feed it, the entire Library of Congress, it can read everything and then tell you what to pay attention to. And that is a incredible superpower to have.
Wow.
And again, when we start thinking about learning in history, I think that skill of partnering with a machine to do the things that humans aren't great at, but preserve the human effort and attention for things that we are good at. That's the algorithm we need to focus on. And this is the way I think of things in terms of how artificial intelligence has grown. Again, the old days, if you wanted to ask a machine to do something, you would not do that until a human understood it completely, right? And then the human would sit down and program in those rules and teach the machine what to do. That's why autonomous vehicles didn't work very well in the early days. Why in 2004, the DARPA challenge, all those autonomous vehicles lost their way across the desert and ran into rocks and stuff pretty quickly. But as soon as they realized that, no, we need to create a machine learning system and then feed it all those optic sensors and LiDARs and all that, let it learn on its own. Today, all you have to do is let a clean machine learning system, we call a brain, set up for driving, watch 100 hours of video of driving, and it can go out and drive flawlessly. So in this phase, which I say 2009, that's kind of arbitrarily where I draw the line, data scientists are in high demand. And that's really about how do I organize all of the content to feed to the machine to teach it what's important and what to learn on. That's the phase we're in right now. But very soon, we're going to go into this next phase where the behavior scientists, the cognitive scientists are the ones I believe will be in great demand. Because now it's not just about getting big data and massaging it into information that a machine can learn on in order to achieve intelligence. It's now about how do I create things that are provably aligned with human values. And that's a deep subject we could probably spend the next hour on, but I won't.
I was just going to say that is incredibly deep, but Josh makes a great point here about it would be interesting to apply this to corporate areas of knowledge lost in emails or corners of SharePoint. If you could, cut this sort of thing loose into those nooks and crannies of the digital world of our enterprises, there could probably be a lot of really interesting tribal knowledge, nuggets of information.
That's a very, very good point, because what we're doing is we're providing that brain that I said I taught on the Dewey Decimal System that started out with about 1,400 nodes and then expanded its own brain to about 4,000. What we're doing is we're selling that brain to universities, to community colleges, and to like an architecture firm, for example, who can take it and what it does is it becomes a sort of a repository of all the organizational knowledge and information flows for that organization. So not just about the practice of architecture, but how that firm practices architecture, or how that community college has the best practices around higher education. I'm on the board of trustees of Wake Technical College here in North Carolina, which was just named the #1 online learning community college in the country. And it is a lot to do with those best practices and using tools like what we're providing them here to hone that knowledge, right? So let me just switch back to this and talk about these animated personas. So we worked with, given what I just said earlier about the behavioral scientists and cognitive folks, we reached out to folks like Jordan Louvier, Dr. Richard Carson out of He's the head of the economics department at UCal San Diego. But these are all guys who work like Richard Thaler, who just got the Nobel Prize in human behavior. This is something we're really focused on, is how do I actually create models of people from data, and then you can use them in all kinds of interesting ways. Imagine being a teacher or having a company and having these detailed models. You talk about personalized learning. This is how you achieve the Young Ladies Illustrated primer from Diamond Age, right? Something that really can tune its content to the person because it understands that person really well. Here's how we model people. Now you start with just like, I can just have census data and other demographic data, and that gets me to about that 20% level. Above that, of course, if I know people have, I can mine like Facebook data or other social media data. Now I can combine interest graph with that, and already I get something that's really interesting that that I can release on the net and watch to understand somebody better. Above that, if I can take in examples of what that person has written before, or what they say about themselves, or what others say about them, I can get to personality and sentiment. And above that, specific choice models, particularly around learning styles, or it can be like, how do you buy a refrigerator, or appliances, or whatever. And I like to say there's some portion of the human spirit that we'll never know, that's inscrutable. But the more, even at the lower levels of incompleteness, these models become really useful for putting into a simulation and practicing things like, how do I build high functioning teams of people in a company, right? So think about it. Recruiting today should not be about, where did you go to school and what experiences do you have, what tools do you know. Now it needs to be more like a model like this, like, will you fit in my team culturally? Will you work well with the other people that have specific other models within the organization? How do I do that across my entire company? If you can do that well, you're going to have a high functioning organization. So here's one of the first things we did a little over a year ago, is I resurrected Victor Hugo. So Victor was a good example because, I can take everything he's ever written. Turns out he wrote a lot more poetry than he did novels, and then everything written about him. And I'm able to create a pretty highly structured model of him, release him on the net. And the first thing I can do is just watch what he's attracted to. And again, the problem in segmentation modeling today, or trying to even model students and consumers, is that we tend to look at these points in time from surveys or focus groups. And those aren't accurate because people change state all the time. I mean, we're heading into the holidays right now. Victor Hugo even is interested in an entirely different set of things than he was back in the summer, right? So Victor is on the net right now. Someone was just pointing out there. I can go visit him every single day and see what attracts his attention, and he actually scores the things that he reads. Turns out he doesn't like Donald Trump very much. He doesn't like Milton Friedman. There's things like that. But we did oh, what's that? Someone shared something there. Or did I do that?
I think you did that.
Right,
I didn't do
right.
that.
Oh, I clicked on something. That's what I did. Hold on.
Hey, you know what? Let me just interrupt you for a minute. I hate to do this, but we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I just want to make sure that we cover some things. Some of the extra stuff that you wanted to do. So if you wanted to, I wasn't sure how much of Tanjo you wanted to show them before we have to go.
We're almost there right now. I'll just show. There's more stuff, but obviously we had some hiccups, so I won't. There's more depth there, which we can talk about later. But what you're looking at right now is think about these, and again, these could all be students or learners, or in this case, they're actual people I'm trying to market to, but it could be anything. What I'm doing here is this video in the center is I'm actually writing content, and I'm seeing in real time how people react to what I have. And one thing we know about learning, for example, is different people respond to different media types in a certain way. They have different, preferences for media types, as well as different kinds of content or writing or how it's expressed, the scholarship level of it. And what you're looking at is something brand spanking new that not many people have seen. We just briefed this to Gartner a couple of weeks ago. But this is a powerful tool for messaging to people. What I'm doing right there is like selecting different personas, different people that I have models for, and I'm dropping them in here and seeing how they're reacting to my messaging in real time.
Oh, wow.
So, and again, I'll just let you guys kind of riff on where you could go with that.
Yeah, I think everybody's heads are spinning.
Yeah, I mean, this is a new tool. So it's the idea of taking simulation into the world of, again, both marketing and messaging, or of building imagine you're Lockheed Martin, you have 120,000 employees. If you had these depths of models and you can see like, all right, we're thinking about deploying a new sort of HR model or a new benefits program or a new assessment program for people. Let's look and see let's predict how they're going to respond to it before I roll it out and see that in real time. Or the example I tend to use that I was using last week at IDSEC is, imagine if the United Airlines guy, CEO, after that event that happened where the guy got dragged off the plane, if he had practiced his messaging before he released it, he would have realized what a disaster how that was going to be received, but he didn't do it. But this is a kind of tool that will let you do that going forward.
So cool.
Yeah, so there's a magazine out there that where we have a bunch of these personas that can actually receive written content from people, stories, poetry, whatever. They read it, they all score it, and really lighten the load of the editors because they do it from their point of view, and they can check things like grammar and scholarship level, and was this written at the 6th grade level or the whatever? Is this a young adult novel, or is this whatever? But they can do that, and then obviously Mark Twain might like humor, and if you get a science fiction writer like Douglas Adams, he might be more attracted to the science fiction, that kind of thing. So those are the kinds of things we're able to employ it. And just this last one I like to share with people is my father died this past year in March, and he didn't have a big footprint out there on the net. He didn't have LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff. But he did have a lot of written correspondence, his military records, that sort of thing. So I thought about it only for about 48 hours before I said, of course, I have to do this. Now I can visit my dad every single day, see what he's thinking about and how he's reacting to current events. And it's, even though it's a shadow of him, he's there and I can visit him. And pretty soon, I really do believe I can turn this into somebody I can talk to with natural language. And imagine having my dad, my great grandfathers and grandmothers, I want to have Leonardo da Vinci and, whatever mentors I want, having a whole stable of these personas that every time I go into a big life decision, I can just consult the oracles of these shadows of people I cared about.
Yeah.
Or revere, right? So I just wanted to provoke you a little bit. I promised Brent I would. So
oh my gosh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
And if you want to read more, there's a bunch of reading I would recommend.
Outstanding. So does now, well, first of all, how do you say is it Tanjo, or do you go Tanho, or how do you pronounce this?
Tanjo's good. Yeah, rhymes. We had some other names we were playing with, but we always, you want to get what you can trademark and something easy to remember. So Tanjo, banjo rhymes with banjo.
Gotcha. Okay. So Tanjo.ai. All right. So how does that fit into all of this?
So we have a couple of products. One is for as I said, for higher education and for companies. We actually will give someone an entire machine learning brain that can do everything that you're seeing that I've showed you here so far. It can ingest all of the content of an organization, map it, show how your information workers work with that information. How does information enter the organization, who challenged it, who championed it, how did you end up making decisions? Think of it like CRM for information and knowledge, which is out there today. So that's one thing. And unlike our competitor, IBM Watson or some others, we'll actually give you the entire system, show you how to use it. It's got APIs and stuff. It can tie right into your learning management system or whatever sort of network you have. And then the other thing, of course, is these animated personas. And, to what activity, no matter what activity you want to apply them to, there's a lot of, whether it's building teams internally or trying to understand customers better or recruit students to a school or whatever. It's a powerful new tool. We call it, I like to think of it as the empathy engine. If you want to see something from someone's point of view, this is a great way to just view that and then test messaging before you go deal with something. So again, just a new set of tools in the toolbox. And there's more depth here about, I have a whole riff on how this is a new step in the scientific method, but like I said, we're sort of out of time to go into that. But hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I had no idea that Tanjo incorporated all of this type of machine learning and everything. Like when you first introduced me to it, I just sort of saw it as like a RSS feed reader, or an aggregator of sorts. But it never even dawned on me all of the AI running on the back end of it and the different things that can be done.
Well, again, I'll just tell you, really interesting. When we did the newsreader in the beginning, of course, it worked extremely well, but it was reinforced by we think of it as a neural net made up of machine bot nodes and humans. And we started releasing it. We really went after universities aggressively. So we had a lot of what I'd call it, whether you call them the millennials or whatever, and they were using it. Yeah. But I don't know if you heard the story about IBM Watson learning the Urban Dictionary, where all of a sudden it started cussing in its responses. It only knows what it's taught, right? And what happened here is I was thinking, hey, we have this brain that's learning all human knowledge. And of course, university students are going to take it in bold new directions and depths of knowledge. Instead, they started using it for, the brain started caring deeply about pop culture. What are the Kardashians doing? What Kanye West? It was really uncomfortable and dispiriting and disappointing. So we unplugged it pretty quickly and said, no, let's do some higher order, let's apply it to some higher order problems.
Yeah. You know what? We are at this 10 o'clock hour, and is it okay if people have a place where they can reach out to you or your company or to find out more?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm Metaversial, METAVERSIAL. I think we're also Tanjo HQ is our Twitter handle, and of course, I think I'm just Richard at Tanjo.ai. And my colleague Will is here with me, so you can write to Will at Tanjo.ai if you have more questions or you want a more in-depth demo if you have an idea, because we're constantly seeing new ideas for how people want to apply this tech. I mean, there's a few things it just does extraordinarily well, but it is there's low-hanging fruit everywhere in every organization.
Oh, yeah.
We're eager to bring it to bear on those problems as quickly and efficiently and affordably as possible, and that's really our big push right now while this stampede is happening, to outmaneuver the big guys like IBM and others who are
I would love to have you back on, or maybe if Will wants to be on next. I know you're super busy, Richard, and I need to book you way out, but we've got requests for people that would like to just go over, but I know you're busy, and I've got a 10 o'clock call that will probably be ringing me any second now too. So, but I'd love to have you back to talk more about this. This is obviously extremely interesting to our community.
Yeah, I hope so. And guys, don't be bashful. Reach out to us. Love the conversation. And I think we're all admiring the same problems.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I definitely will. And we'll schedule one or both of you to come back on in the near future, hopefully, and we can continue this conversation. This was tons of fun, Richard. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Keep doing good work out there, guys.
All right. Thanks. I'm going to close your video and just do a couple goodbye comments to everybody, and we'll talk to you later.
Bet.
All right, everybody. Well, okay, so minds have significantly been blown on a Monday morning, so I hope you guys are all ready for the future and everything that we look forward to. Again, thanks, Richard, for hanging out with us, and and giving everybody a little bit of taste of what's going on out there, and knowing that there are some folks interested in L&D that are doing some of this really cutting edge in machine learning, AI, virtual reality simulation work out there. So great stuff. Again, definitely going to have you back on. We definitely need to continue this conversation, and we will also continue the conversation at TLDC 18 in January 29th and 30th. Get registered today, and maybe if I can talk Richard or Will into coming. Really cold in January, Richard, so you might want to come to Phoenix in the end of January and hang out with us for a day or two if you're free. But that's great. We would absolutely make time for that conversation for sure. So anyways, I hope you all really enjoyed today's. According to the chat, it looks like everybody really did have a great time today. So again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Thanks for sharing with your friends, for being a part of the TLDC community. And I look forward to hearing from you all offline or offcast, if you will. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Everybody have a great day.